Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Block 22. Thank you so much for coming here today. We have a special presentation by the launch students from USD 250. They've been working with us out at the Research Center, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves. They have a wonderful presentation. It's about a 30-minute presentation. So at the end, there will be opportunities to ask a few questions. We're going to be talking about a business proposition. And so in the room today, we have university folks, we have the USD folks, we have the city of Pittsburgh people, and then we also have some industry folks, and we have some of the Kansas ag folks in the room. So thank you again for being here, and I'm going to turn it over to them right now, and they'll introduce themselves.
I am Abraham Alonso, and we are part of Launch. And Launch is a profession-based learning class where we have been able to work in different projects. Some of them would include The Spot, Leafy Greens, and this one, at the KPRC. We have learned a lot through this experience. We have dealt with adults and real life situations, the good parts and the bad parts, and this is a result.
I'm Jordan Grenier. I am an intern at Toast, and I have learned how to not learned yet, but I'm learning how to manage a business and run a restaurant, and I'm also helped do the research on this NetRep. So thank you.
And I'm Paul Moss, and I'm also part of this project as well as part of the Spot project where we're working with the city of Pittsburgh to design a space. And we also have a fourth team member who can't be here today. He's Bryson Hoffman. He cannot be here because he's at the SEK conference tennis tournament. So he has a way cooler excuse than anything we could have come up with. So we four worked on this project over the course of the last few months.
Our project is over NetRep. So what is NetRep exactly? So NetWrap is a plastic material made out of high-density polyethylene used to wrap hay bales. It extends the life of these hay bales. Normally they last around 2 months, a few months, but NetWrap, what it does, it keeps the moisture out and it extends the life to up to 2 years. And so this is very important for farmers. Now, why do we want to start a business here in Pittsburgh? Well, the reason is that this used to be manufactured here in the United States. However, it was moved to overseas for the labor costs, and it was just cheaper to manufacture over there. However, we want to bring it back because that would solve a few problems. Now, the problems that it would solve is, first of all, the supply chain issues, especially now with COVID-19. Getting NetWrap isn't exactly a smooth experience. Farmers will go to their co-ops or a store and go looking for this NetWrap, but they just can't find it. COVID-19 has really slowed everything down, but also just dealing with international companies, it's not a smooth experience. Sometimes they don't have enough stock, sometimes there's issues with shipping, or sometimes things have been stopped altogether. And so we want to fix that by bringing it here to Pittsburgh. And another issue is ordering. Sometimes when dealing with these international companies, it's not a pleasant experience. It's very difficult to communicate with them. We've experienced them. It's hard talking with someone when they do not know your language, so wouldn't recommend that. And another thing, quality. You wait months on end for this product, and you end up not really knowing what you're gonna get. Sometimes you are pleased and you get something good. Other times, you get something less than desirable. We want to fix that by bringing it here to Pittsburgh. That would fix all these problems. And I'll let Jordan tell you about the manufacturing process.
Alrighty, so the manufacturing process. How is NetRep created? First, let's talk about the number. 191 million. That's the estimated number of feet that is needed to wrap all hay in Kansas. We are expecting to catch 30% of the market, so we're still 57 million, still a big number. The starting point, we did some research and found that it would be more cost effective to start with the HDPE sheets instead of making our own with extrusion. We would buy these sheets, and essentially what we would do is we would put them on the slitting machine, it would go through there and cut long strands of the HDPE sheets, And the strands would then go onto the knitting machine and knit it into a Rochelle-like fashion, which a Rochelle knit is essentially a thicker strand intertwined with thinner strands. The HDPE would cost $1.25 a pound, which you'd be getting around 36 tons a month estimated, so around $90,000 a month is what it would cost. The knitting machine, it will cost $150,000 to $535,000, depending on what model and which add-ons you get. The slitting machine is an add-on to the knitting machine, so that's why we don't have it as a separate machine. You would need two to fulfill the 30% Kansan market needs, and it's a 2% yearly upkeep cost. So for one, it would be $11,000, and for two, it would be $22,000. The packaging machine. Essentially what the packaging machine will do is you'll take the finished product of NetWrap and you'll place it onto the packaging machine. It will wrap it with a film and keep moisture out so it won't ruin it. You'll need one of these to fulfill the 30% Kansas market needs and 2% yearly upkeep costs. So with the heavy end being $150,000, it would still be $2,500 a year. The labor and building. Labor needed is 9 employees, and say they work 8 hours a day. It's $2,160 a day. A regular work month is 26 days. So they'd be working, or you'd be paying them around $56,000 a month, all 8 of them together. The space needed is 10,000 square feet for all 3 machines. It is average on rent $5 a square foot, so 10,000, that would be $50,000 a year, or $4,167 per month. And this would average out for labor and building to roughly $60,000 a month for this. And let's go on to the market.
So Jordan is a numbers guy. He likes talking about those numbers, that money. What I'm going to talk about is like why. And that's what we're talking about with the market. And this was Bryson's section, so once again, he said that he can't be here, but he's probably happier that he can't be here. So why NetWrap? Like, what does that have to do with anything? First of all, I'll get to that in a second, but the reason is because NetWrap is important in Kansas. It's important in our area in the Midwest, in this region. It's something that farmers use, and as you know, there's a lot of farmers around here. So because the Kansas market is such a big part of the entire U.S.'s hay production, it represents 5% alone, we thought that this is a great reason to have Pittsburgh be this spot for this manufacturing plant. And if you look at a lot of our neighboring states in the Midwest, we picked a couple of states, and those states alone had about 54% of the entire U.S. hay production. So in a day's drive from Pittsburgh, we'd hit 54% of the entire U.S. market for hay bales, for NetWrap. And that's a pretty crazy number. That means that we could have reached to over half of all hay. So, as you can see, these states in the red, they're the one, and orange, I guess, they're the ones that really show up. The ones in the light blue, they don't really have a lot to do with hay production. So they're all right down Tornado Alley and a couple to the side, and that shows why Pittsburgh is just that perfect spot. It has that perfect radius that can reach all of those places perfectly. I said perfect like 12 times there. So the other thing, though, is we started small. We started with that Kansas. We said we're going to focus on Kansas, and then we can expand and see how it goes to the Midwest. And if we look at just the smallest little circle, the smallest radius, just that 30% of Kansas, that's still quite a bit. That's still 57 million feet of material of this stuff. So that's a lot. But there's also room to expand. You can keep adding machines, and it's something that's very easy to expand. You can start with just 2 machines, and then next year you add 2, and you get 30% more, right? So it can grow really fast. We can see this growth that all of a sudden you have enough machines to supply 54% of the U.S. market, that whole Midwest. And just by starting in Pittsburgh and moving out. So I think with that market research that we've done, it shows that Pittsburgh is that spot that can really help expand the hay market. But you guys are probably wondering, what does that have to do with a bunch of high schoolers? I mean, what did we do on this project? Why are we here? When I first heard about this, when Dr. Dossi and Daryl Pulliam came to us, and they said, yeah, we have this cool idea that we'd like to involve some high school launch students on, where we want to do hay NetWrap. And I was like, hay bales? Are you joking? That sounds boring. And then I realized that it's not really about the hay bales, and I realized that hay bales aren't actually as boring as they seem. There's a lot more that goes into it. But even more so, it's about the process. So the process that we did when we looked at the market, when we looked at what needed to go in, when we looked at business, because that's something that we're all interested in, we wanted to learn, like, how does business work? And this was a great way to do it. Start with a small product and apply those, and I'll call them 4 essential things that a business needs. And I think that this applies to every business and any business. So first of all, I'm going to show them up here. You need that idea. And that's what we got that first day of class. They said, we have an idea for a business here. Local cooperatives that come up to us, they said, we have this problem with COVID-19. All these guys in Malaysia and China, they're having shutdowns. We can't get this stuff. And while those problems have eased recently, in the early parts of 2020, that was huge. They could not get NetWrap. The second thing you need is time. Now, this is really where we come in, because we already got the idea. So for high school students, what are we going to do with time? And I'll talk about that in a second. The third thing that you need for that business is people. And that's also where we come in. You have to get those connections between people who actually know HeyNet, people who know business, people who know manufacturing, get them all together, and then form a business out of that. And then the last thing you need is, of course, money. So first of all, I'll talk about time, steps that we took. So first of all, we had to gather information. We did a lot of Googling those first few weeks of this project. We said, what is HeyNet? And Bryson knows a lot about that because his family owns a farm, but the rest of us really had no clue. So we were looking up hay bales, the sizes, and all this thing. We were calling farmers and cooperatives and asking, what size of hay bale is the most common? What type of NetWrap is the most common? Do you need different ones for different tractors, for different machines? And we just started gathering that information, researching, looking at companies, and just crunching a couple numbers. Second, this is all part of that time. We needed to take what we'd learned and move forward and analyze that data. So we had to make some decisions. We had to say, okay, it looks like the 67-inch is the most popular option. Let's go forward with that and focus on that option. We had to make those decisions based on the data we'd gathered. And lastly, we have to finalize that plan. You need all this time. You need time to gather information. You need time to make decisions. You need time to finalize a plan, use those decisions, use that data, and turn it into this. So next, you need people as well. So we had our team, and our team is great. We had Nikola Bilic, Daryl Polium, Dr. Dossi, Chad Mishmash, and Mary Laritz. I think I said all the names right. Nikola, I'm not completely sure on your last name. So we had scientists, business professionals, and all these people that we could go to, and we'd ask Nikola about a question about extrusion of plastics, because we don't really know anything about that. He'd say, don't even worry about that, or no, it works like this. And then we'd go to someone else, and we'd go to Chad and just ask, how does marketing work? And he'd tell us this. So you need those people to help build your business. And not just our team, we had outside people like Randy Robinson. He came to us a couple of times and just talked about business, and he's from the Small Business Development Center, and we just learned a lot about what goes into small businesses. So once again, we learned about that process. It's not really about HeyNet, it's about how we can take what we learned from HeyNet and apply it to other parts of business. We also talked to farmers, like Dale Helwig and James Coover, because we didn't know anything about how hay worked. And in that people section, we also talked to businesses. So we talked to cooperatives and local farm stores and just called them and said, we want a local vision of how much hay is used, what farmers use it, what they like. So we had to get that. We had to reach out to those people to gather that data. Next, we had to call some national companies. And this was after we'd moved along a little bit, because we needed to know what raw material we needed, what that plastic was, and how to buy it in bulk. So we talked to people like Providence Yarn, and then we talked to Paper Tubing Core, which makes these cardboard cores that have to go around the NetWrap. So we actually called these companies, and there were some other companies that we called that, most of them were on the East Coast. And I remember this one time, we called a company, and we had the phone out. We were all sitting around the conference room, and like the sound was so static. You couldn't really hear a thing. And we figured they must have been driving in a truck, and it was just like 2 guys in a truck. And at one point they said, okay, we'll put you to our sales guy. And then we figured they were on a cell phone because they hand it over. And the other guy picks it up and goes, yeah, I'm the sales guy. So we had a lot of really funny experiences like that. And then, of course, we also talked to these international companies. So we talked to Tiandi and Wei Ming, and Abe did a lot of that, and he'd call them, and they'd be speaking in Chinese, and he'd say, yeah, do you speak English? And they go, what? And hang up on him. So we had a lot of these really cool experiences that not a lot of high school students get. And we also talked to Karl Mayer, which is a German company. We talked to their US office, and after about like 6 phone calls, we finally got through to a receptionist. And we got through that to a receptionist, and she said, okay, I'll send you to our sales guy. And this guy was working from home, so it also took like 5 calls to get to him. And when we finally got to him, we got talking, and we figured out what machine we needed, because German companies always seem to make manufacturing machines. And he said, okay, yeah, this is the machine you need. And then we said, oh, can you give us a little bit more information, some specs on it? He said, well, I don't speak German, and all the specs are in German, so that's going to be a little hard. And so we eventually figured it out, and we got talking with him, and he said, okay, finally got the instructions in English. But what we learned is that the world is a lot more complicated. Business is a lot more complicated than we think. There's all these, you have to work with different languages, different people who are just 2 guys in a truck and will hang up on you. But we also learned that it's very simple. I learned that you just need those 4 things. You just need that idea, that first idea. You just need some people to talk to, whether that be companies or team members, scientists that actually know about your product. You need a lot of time to go through this whole process, and then as soon as your business started, you need a lot more time to continue to grow it. And lastly, you need money. So to talk about money, we're going to look at the answer. Does this business work?
Okay, so will this business make you money, or will it make you broke? That's what we really were trying to find out. And so the answer was that yes, it will make you money. So you will, overall in a month, if you sell all your product and you get that perfect market share, you'll be making $168,000 of revenue. 6.5% of that will be profit, which will come out to $11,000 a month in profit. Now, that is just in the first few years, whenever you're still paying off those huge machines that cost a lot of money. Once you pay off those machines in 10 years, that's how we planned it. That profit margin will rise up to 10%, which will be around $18,000 a month. I don't know about you guys, but I think that's pretty good. And so the strengths of the businesses. So this would be, Pittsburgh is the perfect spot, and that is the biggest strength that we have. We are in the very center of all these locations that are big in hay production. And so by bringing a business here in Pittsburgh, you have access to all of that. And that is a powerful asset. And another benefit is that it's going to be here. It's going to be local. You don't have to deal with foreign entities. So it's going to be smooth. It's going to be seamless. And another thing is it's adaptable. When talking about these machines, we learned that they are very flexible, and it lets you change the length, the knitting variation, so you can fit to any of your farmer's needs, and that's who you really want to be concerned about. You want to make sure that you are delivering the best you can, and that you can do with these machines. And another thing is it's expandable. As we've said, we focus on Kansas because that's where we're from, and so we wanted to think about our farmers first. But the thing is, you can grow to the entire U.S. because one thing we found was we only have one competitor here in the United States. That's a great advantage. You don't have to worry about competing with a lot of companies, just one. And they're not that big. We did not hear about them until the last moment. So they don't have a big hold over the market. So you can grow and you can take over this entire market. There's no competitors, which just means more money for you. And another thing is that this was a community project. We worked with the KPRC, we've worked with NEMA now, yes. so many acronyms. We worked with Randy Robinson from the SBDC, the Small Development Business Center, or the Small Business Development Center. Acronyms, gotta love them. And lastly, it's American made. The products that we dealt with were from foreign entities, and that means that we didn't know the quality until we got the materials, until we got the product. With here being in America, you know it's American made with American quality for the American farmers, and that's the icing on the cake. Now, we do have to talk about some of the weaknesses, and the biggest one is that it's a changing demand. It's a changing market. Every company that deals with this product, there's no one number that you don't have to produce this much every single year. No, hay production varies based on weather. It can be affected by droughts or too much rain or too little rain. And so you have to try and predict what that hay production is going to look like every single year. And so that's one thing that you're going to have to worry about. You have to try and figure this market out and try to predict it as best as you can, that you don't end up producing too little or too much. And another thing is marketing. Ideally, the perfect share of the market would be around 30% or even grow up to 54%. But that's years after launch off. In the beginning, you're definitely not going to have to, you're not going to have that entire market share. And startup cost, that is another huge thing. These machines are expensive. They range up from $100,000 to $500,000, and to me that sounds like a lot. And so you're going to have to be dealing with these huge costs. Now, opportunities. The biggest opportunity that one has when dealing with this is that you have the opportunity for development. Right now, it's just a simple HDPE film knitted into this hay wrap. Well, that can be developed into focusing it and being more green. So one of our first ideas was talking about whether we could make this biodegradable or recyclable. And so by doing this, you could not only do what it's supposed to do, but you could also help the environment, which is a big thing because when farmers are dealing with this, once they're done with the hay wrap, they either let it sit in a pile or they burn it, which neither of those are good options for the environment. And the next opportunity would be the seamless supply. It's here in America, so you don't have to deal with those foreign identities. It's entities, thank you. You don't have to deal with them, so it's all seamless, it's frictionless, and you order the product, and just a little while later, you get the product. That's simple. You don't have to be waiting for months and end up losing it all, and maybe even getting terrible quality. Being here in America assures quality. And the biggest, another big opportunity is the high market share. Again, we are in the middle of everything, so you have access to the entire market with very little competition. That is a big thing. You wouldn't have to compete with any local American competitors here. And it's also very versatile. We talk about this product being used for net wrap. However, that's not all that it is used for. It's used for wrapping produce, it's wrapped for packaging. So whatever, you can do so many things with this product, not just hay wrap. So that is a huge market, but it's not the only market you can reach with this. Now, some of the threats. We found out that farmers don't enjoy risking a new product. They want to go what they know will work. They want to go with what they know is safe. And so that might be a little bit hard when introducing this product, when introducing something new. And another thing, and I keep saying that, is pollution. I talked about it, it's not exactly great for the environment. And if you're someone that worries a lot about the environment, this might seem terrifying because what happens to all this plastic, it tends to end up getting burnt in a field somewhere, which isn't that great for the environment. So that tends to be a huge threat. And another thing is, while we might not have many competitors or any competitors here in the US, there is still those foreign companies which are pretty big, and that is what is controlling most of the market right now. So what now? We have finished our part. So now we hand this off to the to the university, and they can go forth and follow through with this project. And thank you for coming and listening to us ramble for way too much. So any questions?
So just from an oversight, I am incredibly impressed with what these young men did this semester in the way that they come and work with us a couple of days a week. I mean, our entire team out at NEMA, out of the Tyler Research Center, are just extremely proud of the work that they did. But it's, like they said, it's not done. They have carried this ball down a long ways down the field, and now we get the opportunity to advance that a little bit more. So in terms of what's next, we'll continue to develop this model, and we'll look at it a little closer. They did a lot of legwork, and just like they said, they got on the phone, they called people. Their professionalism of how they conducted themselves was phenomenal. And so again, I'm extremely proud of these guys, and I would offer any of them a job out at the Tyler Research Center. We talked about it. So, everyone wants to come out and do a little more business work, come see us. But again, from the audience, any thoughts or ideas about the product itself?
Just a question, have you guys thought about options for collecting the material after it's used?
Yes.
So that was one of the opportunities that we have. We talked about maybe developing or making some sort of system that once these farmers are done, we can have someone go and collect all these wasted product, all this finished product, and maybe recycle it or you reuse it for something. We've talked about that, and that's something that a business could look into.
Yeah, so when Dr. Rossi first came to us, he actually said there could even be, and he was just kind of ad-libbing, but he said there could even be a subscription service where people, pay a little bit a year and they can go get their hay net collected and then net wrap collected, and then we can come and recycle it and reuse it in the next year's product and combine it with some of the newer stuff. So yeah, that's definitely an option.
Mm-hmm.
Just had a question. Whenever you were doing your research and stuff and you're doing your marketing part, did you come up with a price point competitive to those foreign net wraps or anything?
Yeah, so what we found is that we didn't really find any wholesale prices, which that was kind of tough, and that's where we tried calling these foreign companies out of China. I think both of them were out of Taiwan or China, and we called them, and they were not. First of all, we didn't speak Chinese, and they were also not very liberal with their prices. But we did find we know a lot about we found a lot of averages for what the retail prices are. And so we were looking into, what percentage usually is wholesale and what's our price have to be to get that profit. And we were finding that usually retail for a roll of this, and a roll of this covers a lot of hay bales. I mean, it covers, I can't remember the number.
It's around 7,000 feet, I think.
Yeah, so our average roll is around 7,000 or 8,000 feet. So it covers, 50 some rolls, I think. So it covers a lot of hay bales. But what we found, and those usually sell for a little over $200 to almost $300 retail, depending on the brand. And so we were assuming that the wholesale would be less than that. And so I think for most of the calculations, it's like $140. And that's what the profit, maybe is a little bit more than that, but $140 to $150 for that wholesale. And we tried to keep it conservative on everything just so we got those numbers that were realistic, and also we want to make it known that, like, that 6.5% profit margin, that's just like the lowest it can be. I mean, it can go way above that, and especially after you pay off those machines.
Right, yeah, we should definitely clarify that when doing crunching all those numbers, we went for worst case scenario, there's a drought, something goes wrong, everything goes on the low end, everything's way too expensive. So this is minimum. This is worst case scenario.
I don't know if it was covered, but how many people would you need to facilitate the manufacturing facility that you're wanting to build? So how many people would you need to actually operate what you talked about today?
9 employees to operate it.
Yes.
Operate 2 machines.
For the 2
yes.
machines, it was 9 employees, and that's just for the machines. That doesn't include any bureaucratic work or any of the business stuff management. That's just the operation of machines.
You said wholesale, so was your market assumption like just going to a distributor? Like
Yeah.
not direct market, it's just mostly selling directly to a distributor.
Yeah, so that's something we talked a lot about as well. We focus a lot on farmers being our consumers, but they're really our end consumers, because our immediate ones are those cooperatives and farm stores, and that's who we spent most of the time talking to, is cooperatives and farm stores, to figure out what we didn't really figure out what they were paying, because they didn't really want to say that, but that's how we learned about the retail prices. That's where we learned about what the biggest price points are, and what the most common sizes, and a lot of that is. So we have plans for a little bit of both, but mostly to retailers.
Because just sitting here listening to it, it sounds like their margins are a little bit better than yours.
Yeah.
something to look into, I think. When the wholesaler makes more money turning it around than you make manufacturing it, then there's opportunity here. So.
Well, that's a good piece of advice. We hadn't thought about that.
Anybody else? You good?
I guess just one other
Yes.
thought I had with the business model plan, because I'm from the farm industry, is so your machines can run 12 months a year, but farmers work May through September on hay baling. So when you did your facility, did you take into account storage for storing that net while those down months?
Yeah, that was a huge part of it. We needed to calculate the fact that the season for hay wrap is only a few months, and so most of the production will be on that off season. So yes, that was calculated in there.
You guys did a great job.
Thank you.
Right. Give it up.